I'm quite humble to stand and after these people, so it's fabulous, the insights that you've given us, and I've loads of ideas plagiarised now in my head for when I go back. But I'm wearing green, I'm a proud Limerick woman, so I'm going to present what I've done, okay? I'm part of Shannon College, and we teach students on an international degree programme. So I'm just going to give you a snapshot of my ethos, how I do things in Shannon, challenges to getting that inclusion going in the classroom. And I suppose what I've tried to do to be more inclusive, whether or not it works, I can chat to the students there later. Maybe you'll tell me, give me more ideas, which will be great. So we were asked to identify our teaching ethos, and on the left-hand side, you'll see what I was. In another institution, I had some mentoring and so on around my teaching style. Can anyone guess what that is? I was defined as a carer to the vulnerable, which I thought was beautiful. I said, how fabulous, I'm so kind. But what are they doing in the pictures? They're doing everything for the person. So I had to get rid of that. Maybe it was my ambition to be a nurse years ago, but it's not the right way to be, because students all have ability. Someone among you there, maybe it was Michelle or someone, talked about different abilities. So what I have to be is on the right. So I hope you can guess what that one is. A gardener to plants, okay? So once I plant the seed, you have to do the work yourself. So that's my teaching ethos, and it has maybe taken me 10 years to kind of get that into my mind. You think you are that person, but whether or not you actually are, there's days when I just put the coat on the student and send them out, but there's other days when I have the time. So that's the challenge that for me, my own personality. So the context of the module, I picked one module. I teach a range of them in year 3 and 4 in Shannon. So I wasn't sure from the nominations and the lovely comments which one it was. So I picked the third year module, and I picked it because the marketing module is what they tell me is their first academic and business module in college. Now it's not. They have done some in first year and then they go on a placement, but they forget, and it's a reintroduction, and it's coming back from the world of work and a really tough placement with language skills and so on. So to come into my room is something other again for them. And I have worked other places where I expect them to come and hit the ground running. So I've had to re-educate myself and say, why are they in this room? What are they trying to learn? Now for the marketing module, it's an easy sell. Ursula mentioned about an easy class to teach. You know, teaching hoteliers about customers. Happy days. I mean, I just got the nicest module. So what I'm trying to do is get the students to facilitate their own inquiry and get them thinking why these customers are so important. You know, our students are so important to us, and likewise in a hotel, who comes in your door is so important to you. And also in the room, I'm trying to, with all the disabilities or abilities and different abilities, I'm also trying to consider the challenges in-house. And I was really delighted to hear somebody else mention about the students not including each other, because that's something I find is a challenge. So it's not all on me, it is a little bit of them. And research I'd done before about the surface level of how international universities in Ireland are, not just NUI Galway, across the board. So the goal for them and for me was to get them thinking in new ways and therefore behaving in new ways. But what I've discovered is that you have to get them behaving a certain way before you change the thought process, okay? So while it might sound inspiring to start with a thought, you have to instill certain behaviours, okay? And I've tried to bring UDL in, but I'm still learning, so that'll take me another 10 years, okay? The challenges for them, I've just noted a few, and I see I have too many words on the slide now, but definitely things like attention span, okay? And for me, a real thing for me that I suppose is important is this hidden disability or this distraction that they have inside, the conversations they're having with themselves that I can't. Or why should I? And the lack of motivation, whether it's anxiety or non-traditional route to university, that's a real challenge for people. Coming to Shannon, we have a range of fabulous people. Some will classify themselves as practical, and they'll just decide, academic modules are not for me. But you have to deal with a customer. This is a customer module. So you're trying to explain it to them, why we train our brains this way, that it can help you then in the practicality. For me, though, it's personal motivation. You have 100 students in front of you. We know them all on a first-name basis, but that takes a lot of my energy and my personality. And it's really hard to be that active and extroverted all the time. So that's a reality for people. And also for students, maybe they didn't do well before. They're a mature student coming back. Some other course didn't work out for them. Someone down there mentioned academic writing. I think it was yourself mentioned. And a lot of students have this fear. And they're like, oh, she's making us do an essay. I'm like, isn't it wonderful you're getting a chance to do an essay? No. So I started off usually asking, what does exclusion feel like for that person? Because I can look around the room and everyone wears a uniform in Shannon. So they all look the same, but how they feel is very different. So you try and open that conversation no more than my colleagues do here and see what people are feeling like in the room and what exactly is the problem. You could give them a list of 10 things to do for referencing, but if that written word is a challenge for them, they're not going to engage and it's just a wall straight away. So trying to figure out how to do that. So the first thing is I set out my expectation of what I want in my classroom. And the whole reason I do that is that there's certain things that are threshold concepts that are non-negotiable. I don't care what your ability level is. You have to do this when you're in the room with me. And that's an inclusivity in itself, getting people to thinking we're all in this together. So whatever your level of hard work is, it will be rewarded. For some, getting a C is a great achievement. For others, it's an A. But I always remind them that a C to an A is only 20 marks. So to get a C is a great achievement in my room. And there's a joke about that I don't give out A's. I do, you just have to work for them. Reading and self-directed research and study is so rewarded as well. And, a student will do a very random presentation and they'll put pictures in of bonsai trees. And you give that a bit of encouragement and ask them why they've done it. And they're able to tell you some story about where they've travelled or something in their family. And it's fabulous because then they get encouraged to talk more about where they're from. So we try and do that. And mandatory in this module, there has to be a diversity in the group. So they have to tell me what was the diversity. Okay, so it could have been a gender thing, could be an age thing, but often it's things that are unseen. So maybe someone whose parents didn't go to college, like you mentioned, I think Jason said that, and that, this for them is, it's an unspoken thing to get that conversation happening in a safe way. So tolerance is being built up and people are understanding we have different perspectives. So that's really worthwhile, but it is a big effort. I'm not going to lie, okay? It's a big effort. And this is something that I show in class to students and it really resonates. So you've probably seen it before. If you haven't, I'll explain it very quickly. It's just, if we give everyone the same thing, it doesn't always help people, okay? It doesn't have the same outcome. And when they see the boxes, they're saying, okay, Celine is going to give me more help. Now that's old Celine. What new Celine does is she says, okay, if you need the box, you have to ask me for it. But I'll give it to you when you ask me for it. Because if they have that disability, they have to figure out how they manage their disability. So if they need office hours, no problem. If they want to come in a group, no problem. But they have to ask me because I can't know everything. So that's my approach with them. Okay, so what do I do very quickly? There's a list of things, and if anyone wants to chat to me, I start off with what's known as a VARC questionnaire, okay? Visual, oral, reading, writing, or kinesthetic learning. It's a free tool online. I recommend anyone, you have a look at it for yourself. It's there for educators as well. I learn by reading and writing. And I get the students to fill this in online, so they're allowed to take out their phones and do it in the first week of class. And they figure out, I say, how do you think you learn? And a lot will say, kinesthetic and practical. When they fill it in, they find out actually they are or. I say, okay, you don't like it, but it's how you learn. So guess what? Get your pen out, you have to write. And they kind of accept it. It's not me telling them, it's the questionnaire. But that could be their the diversity in their group. So one is a visual learner, somebody else is reading and writing, and that's how they come together. So it's just trying to find alternative ways of saying who we are and what's important about that. The online materials in advance, like Ursula said, really important. And the lecture format, I just detailed a set structure that I have with a 10-minute recap on the previous class, non-negotiable, writing on the board, whatever it is about a whiteboard, it's magic. I have their attention because they know I wrote it out again, so everyone is watching me. And everything that goes up on the board has to be generated from them. So what do you remember from last week? And they're waiting for me, and I have to be okay with the silence. So somebody must remember something from last week. So we start off with that, and then that topic, how it leads into this topic, and off we go. At the end, we go back to the questions and the points on board. What will you remember for next week? And they get into this pattern, okay, these are the 5 things we have to do in Celine's class every week. In terms of assessment, tutorials, everyone, you try to get to know them on their first name. We've 50 in a class, it's a big context, it's very hard to get to know them. But calling someone on their first name really gives them a place. They wear a name badge. It's easier for me, okay? I know it's not easy in other classes, but you get up close and ask them, and they'll remember, and they say to you on graduation day, remember the day you asked me about that L'Oreal hair care case study, and I didn't know what you were on about. I don't use shampoo. So you're trying to engage them and get them to say, but why would someone use it? And from that tutorial and the discussion they have, one of the mandatory exam questions is based on a class discussion that we've had. So it might be a case study about shampoo, hygiene or high fashion, and trying to get them to challenge that and the conversations that happened in the class that day. Now, it challenges, of course, if someone isn't in the room, they've missed that conversation. So it's to encourage them to keep showing up. And I know people can't always come, but it's to incentivise and say, do your best to come here. Now, we record and take notes, and if there's ever a guest speaker, I take the minutes for someone so that I have notes for them. them, and I give them handwritten notes from me to them. But it's not easy, okay? Mandatory office hours over the semester, they have to come at least once in their group, and I have a list and I tick it off. And when group 26 come complaining about their grade, I say, but I haven't seen you this semester. And they go, drat. So you make it mandatory, and then it becomes normal. And when it's normal, the people who need it and they need the box will come and ask for it because they've been in the office with me for a few minutes. So that helps. It's not perfect. It's an art. It works for me, but it might work for somebody else if you think about that. There's a big effort put in semester 1, year 3, but it pays dividends for me by year 4 with them because they don't need me as often. They've got a few tips and tricks and it works, okay? So the key thing for them is that they have to feel empowered. That's what's important for me, that they have a voice and that they use it in my class. Some of the resources I use, I know we're all looking for the tips and tricks. I've some done there in bold that I think are really important. Things like an online sign-up, so they're not having to come to my office door. Things that are online that they can, use Google Docs or OneDrive and so on. It sounds basic, but it really makes life easier for people. The VARC, teaming up with the library staff, whatever lies I'm telling in class, the library staff are too. I go through all my assessments with the library staff. So when students go there and say, I've missed class, they know what's happening in my tutorial. So we're lucky in our context, we're small and local, so we can do that. The core textbook, something I didn't use for a few years. I wasn't into it. I wanted students to read around. But that's what I was able to do when I was in college. For the non-native English speakers, to have the lecture slides mapped onto the actual core textbook, and in class me saying, that diagram now is on page 167. It really helps students. You can see activity where they're looking and they're bringing their books and using them. And it's not for everyone, but they're online versions of the book as well, so it helps with cost and so on for them. So that one I really recommend, and Sage and other publishers are mad to sell us these books, so look at what they have, because the companion site helps 10%, but for that 10% it really makes a difference. The last point then, YFM, have you seen that before? It's the most important thing, what's in it for me? So when they stand in my class, I say, why are you here? You want to be a hotelier. Do you think knowing about your customers is important? And when you keep reminding them of that, the motivation has to come from them, not from me, because I'm not the carer anymore. I am the gardener. I give them the water. So my aim is to get them, talking about their diversity, their own backgrounds, having an opinion when others don't have an opinion. Autonomy in their own learning, it's a bit small, but I just said ask for the box when they need it. So that it's not me prompting all the time, that they feel empowered, that it's the norm. Come and see me if you need to see me, if there's an anxiety issue, if you have a bereavement, if you're away from home. I had a student who was very much not engaged in class for a few weeks, hadn't signed up for assessment work, and rather than attack mode, I was like, why, what's going on? And he didn't disclose there and then, and he had all the attitude, and I just followed up with a one-liner. I said, if there's something you need to tell me, just tell me, it's no problem. And he had a problem at home, and he was feeling a bit lonely, but he was okay, and he's come back and he's in the zone again. What the students have said from that approach is that it helped them in the transition. They feel inspired, they like humour, so maybe they like my green dress from Limerick. They want to achieve their own goals. So a lot of this is where I'm removed and I'm not the point of the class anymore. It's down to the techniques where they say, what do you need from me to be, the person that you want to be? Okay? What I can do next, obviously I can bring in more of that UDL approach, and I know there's paperwork out there for us to remind us, because we can always do it better. Online learning, I have to learn it. One of the students, I think it was Emily, said we just have to get the training and get on with it. So I have to do that. I just have to get on with learning about videos and so on. So still a long way to go with the module and other modules, okay? And that it's bit by bit. And for the students, I suppose, they want to know everything now. It's so instant. Whereas I try and encourage them and say, leaving class, what one thing did you learn today that you didn't have walking in? So they're interested in that. And even the fact that I use a Chinese proverb, students react very well to that it's not always Mary Robinson that I'm talking about. There's other people in the world that can inspire us. They're here to study in Ireland, but they love to see their culture mentioned or enabled in class. It's really, really important. Okay? So to sum up, I'm hopefully a gardener, and there are plants in our office. I share an office with this lovely woman. How lucky for me. Challenges definitely is their own awareness and them coming to ask for help. But my own challenge obviously is to stay motivated in a class of 50 people. I have to live with that. So how do I manage that for a tutorial and a lecture of 100? There's a few suggestions there, like your VARC questionnaire, reminding students all the time why they're sitting in that classroom, and what they can get out of it. And it keeps me on track as well, that what I do is practical for them. And the feedback on that is really just that they feel now that they can look up, speak up, team up, and maybe lift others up. Okay, thank you.